Welcome to your Friday, folks. The weekend is almost here. We have some work to do beforehand, of course. I'd like to thank Vanessa Veinotte on the other side of the glass at the control boards. Doing a fine job as always. We will open the phone lines in about an hour's time, as we do each and every day. Lots of talk yesterday about the stadium, or the potential stadium, I should say, in HRM, as council will study it, and lots of varying opinions, as you might imagine, and all kinds of emails and calls. And perhaps some of you might want to weigh in on that again today. A stadium, yes or no, at the Wanderers grounds? Why or why not? What's your take on all of this? Derek Martin, owner of the Wanderers, who played tonight at the Wanderers grounds, by the way, was on the show, and frustrated, I would say, is how I would describe his tone. He seemed as though, I don't know about losing hope. It might not be I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the feeling that I got from Derek Martin was that he's frustrated that eventually they're going to have to make a decision, or they're going to have to figure something else out. Because the pop-up stadium is not going to get it done long term. They don't have any water. They don't have any bathroom facilities there. And look, I get his point. But I also get the point of those people who have concerns about the price tag or potential price tag of a stadium. $100+ million is what it's looking like, and of course the Wanderers grounds itself, public property. What's the intention for it? So the debate goes on. We'll get into this again when we open the phone lines, as mentioned, in about an hour's time. Lots of other things to get to as well, including a story that I saw on the CBC website, which really I find alarming and something that I think you should know about if you don't already know about it. Many Canadians are complaining they can't reach anyone at the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, by phone to address important tax matters, and the union representing agency workers has joined affected taxpayers in pleading with the federal government to fix the problem. Here's a quote. It says, "It's just so frustrating, disappointing," says Krista Tucker-Petrick of North Bay, Ontario, one of several affected taxpayers interviewed by the CBC News. She said she's been calling CRA at least twice a day daily for weeks to deal with her late stepmother's estate, and she says every time she calls, she's not even put on hold. Instead, she's greeted by an automated recording about CRA online service options. And a bookkeeper, Erin Rudd, says she started experiencing the same problem in May. Now, staff at her company take turns spending the entire day trying to call CRA to address urgent client matters. So, of course, the Union of Taxation Employees, which represents CRA workers, says nearly 3,300 call center employees have lost their jobs since May of 2024. Consequently, the union says on average fewer than 5% of callers reach an agent. Can you imagine you've got a tax problem, whether it be urgent or non-urgent or whatever? For some people, it's quite, in particular if you own a business. But there are a lot of matters that you need to talk to somebody. At CRA, 5% of your calls get through to an agent. I mean, this is just unacceptable, folks. Unacceptable. It's unbelievable that we're dealing with this. So I thought I'd throw that out there, see if you've been impacted by this and what your thoughts are on it as well. Other things in the pile also, we'll get to those things. So, again, thanks so much for tuning in and listening, everybody. We very, very much appreciate it. Now joining us for a chat is HRM Councillor Sam Austin, who represents District 5, Dartmouth Centre. Sam, thanks for joining the show.
No problem, Todd. Happy to be on.
Indeed. Okay, so I saw a story in the Chronicle Herald. I'll read a bit of it. The confusion was palpable during Halifax Regional Council Tuesday night as councillors tried to comprehend the province's rejection of the municipality's updated regional plan. So for those who don't know, what is the regional plan all about?
So the regional plan is basically the overarching planning document for the municipality. People would be familiar with zoning and that kind of thing. That applies to your individual properties, and that's in your land use bylaw. And then the land use bylaws roll up to the regional plan. So the regional plan sets the whole table for everything that you're doing. So the land use bylaws come out of it. It's basically the master document for all of our planning, and we've been in a long process of revising it, and that's kind of hit a bit of a road bump as of late.
Okay, and that road bump is the provincial government has rejected the plan. Tell us why.
Yeah, so basically the province rejected it, which is not something that, I mean, that's something they could always do with planning documents. They've always gone to the province for approval, but it's typically been a formality. You have to go back to like 2010, 2011 to find a case where the province rejected a proposed plan, and I think that was over farmland rezoning in the Annapolis Valley, if memory serves. So they rejected the plan, and the minister, John Lohr, cited three things. He said are requiring EV charging equipment to be installed in new construction, increasing the setback from watercourses from 20 meters to 30 meters were things that would impact the affordability of housing. And then there was kind of a third vague one, which frankly I think was just thrown in for good measure. It was really about those first two that said that we hadn't gone far enough to change zoning, which is something you do in your land use bylaws. But, you know, it was in there too, and no specifics attached to that one.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this? Is politics at play at all here? What do you think is going on here?
It's really tough to say. I mean, we've received the letter. The part that's kind of frustrating out of the whole thing is the minister on any planning matter, when it comes to them, they can reject, they can amend it themselves, or they can pass it. So outright rejecting the plan wasn't the only option available. If they didn't like what we were proposing to do regarding EV charging or setbacks, they could have, the minister could have instead just amended those sections rather than throwing the entire suite of work out, because there's a whole bunch of unintended consequences from doing that I don't think they fully comprehended, because it's now kind of coming back to roost.
Okay, what are some of those things that they didn't comprehend, they didn't perhaps look at or didn't foresee?
Well, or didn't really get the severity of what the impact would be. I mean, we have 12 projects out there. These would be mostly, not so much in the center plan area that I represent, mostly impacts for suburban developers who have projects out there where we haven't yet gone through a center plan type process, so we still have outdated planning rules in the suburbs. And so in the regional plan, there was a whole bunch of enabling policy to encourage development in places in the suburb that we know are the sort of places we want development to occur, you know, near transit, on underutilized kind of commercial lands, those kinds of things. And all of that is now in limbo. So we had our director of planning present to council this past week, and I asked her, well, how many units does this affect? And on 12 projects that are very directly impacted cannot now proceed until this is straightened out. It's over 2,000 units. Here we are in a housing crisis. The province has been very critical of HRM over the years for slowing things down, and this stroke of a pen, you know, writing of a letter, has put over 2,000 units on hold. And then we can't quantify this one. There's another 24 projects that were in the planning process, relying on amendments in the regional plan, but they were kind of in an earlier stage, so we can't quantify how many units exactly they would be. But the director of planning said that there's thousands more that are then impacted from this as well. So this is an incredibly disruptive, chaotic, and broad brush that has been used to, quash a whole bunch of housing, put it in limbo for the sake of disagreeing about EV chargers and what setbacks from watercourses should be. Pretty blunt result.
And I suppose, so what do? Go back to the drawing board and blow it up entirely, or what? How do you even proceed with the plan at this point?
Well, we can't really. We have to wait for the province to, tell us what you want then, right? You don't want this, so tell us what you want, right? There's no point in us going back to the drawing board and trying and guess, what do they want here? Well, what do they want there? They have to tell us. And so that's the process that will now unfold, as our staff will go to their staff and we'll try and fix this, right? You know, we've been all thrown into the ditch here by this, and so now we all have to figure a way out of it. So I suspect there will be a pretty strong sense of urgency on both sides as the ramifications of this are becoming more and more clear of how big a deal this is turning out to be.
What's the point of you having a council if the province wants to govern?
Well, it's been put to me. I mean, we still do a lot of governing, but we certainly have someone who's, we have a lot more backseat driving, as you, if you will, than we've ever had in the past.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been entirely, negative. I mean, I've been critical of many things. I mean, I just wish the province would, rather than micromanaging every one of our decisions, tell us what you want. Set a target. You need to have, enable your planning policy needs to enable, X number of units, whatever percentage developable land. Give us a number target, and then let us go off and develop a plan to hit your target, right? Rather than being into the minutia in the way that they are. I think we'd be far better off if the province didn't just, get out of municipal space entirely, but approached it with a little bit more of a higher level as to what they want to achieve.
Well, perhaps they haven't put in the time, right? Perhaps they haven't delved into the issue too deeply. That could be the case, right?
Yeah, well, it could be. I mean, this one to me, just my own gut instinct on this is I don't think they fully understood what the impacts of rejecting the regional plan outright versus amending it, because we could have amended it. We could have changed those specific sections that they were having a problem with, that some in the development industry had been complaining to the minister about. We could have fixed those specific sections. I don't agree with their particular tack that EV charging shouldn't be included and that, we shouldn't be further back from wetlands. But there's a whole bunch like that. That's like 1% of the regional plan. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that is now just in limbo. And, it feels to me like the probably the most severe case in government terms of ripping off your nose to spite your face that I think I've ever seen.
So how frustrating is it for council to be at the behest of the province, which was always the case, but now it's punctuated because the province seems to be intent on getting involved, whether it be bike lanes or whatever the debate might be. The province and Tim Houston seems to be quite willing to step in. How frustrating is that, or is it frustrating?
I mean, I personally find it frustrating, right? Because, and it's not even that, we all serve the same public. And the province has a role to play in, a lot of things that are going on in the municipality. Goodness knows financially we need their support. We don't generate enough money to do all the sort of big picture city transformation sort of projects that are going to be needed as this place continues to grow rapidly. So, I mean, we need the province. Like, we need to be working together as partners. My big frustration is the working together piece doesn't seem to happen, right? Rather than having a conversation about like, hey, these pieces aren't working, can we fix these? That doesn't happen. You just get, your plan rejected. Morris Street. There were so many opportunities for the province to stick up their hand and say we have concerns, or even after the fact, because, I cut them slack. Governing is hard. There's lots of complexity. Issues are not, kind of simple. Even if you miss something, stick up your hand and say, hey, we've got some concerns about this. Can we talk about it? But to just have, everything come at you after the fact, with just kind of, no, you didn't do good enough when you didn't have any conversation at the front end, this isn't productive for anyone. And I just wish we could have a more collaborative sort of relationship where instead of just kind of rejecting things and criticizing, the province could instead work more closely with us to find common ground and find solutions.
Are you concerned that the brand of council is being impacted here?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough to say, right? There's certainly a lot of swirl out there and social media. Certainly, we've had we have a new mayor, and things have been more acrimonious around council than it has been in the past. But I actually think council is still functioning quite well. We have a bunch of new colleagues, and I think they're taking to it quite well. The challenge is that just because there's noise, just because there's disagreement, doesn't mean that's dysfunction, right? Like, democracy is messy. We're not meant to agree on everything. We're not meant to have unanimity of opinion. If you did, why even have a council? So I don't think it's necessarily just that, because things are, a little bumpy, that things are dysfunctional.
No, I get that, but when you get the province stepping in consistently and suggesting that council's decisions are not on point, or the I guess the image is that council is not capable of governing itself. That might be the optics of this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's up for the public to decide. They can look at each individual decision, look at the actions of the parties involved, and then it's up to the public to really decide on that at the end of the day. I mean, to me, I don't necessarily begrudge the province from taking an active interest in the municipality. I just wish it was more collaborative. Like Morris Street, we didn't have to go through all this circus around Morris Street. We could have had a conversation about it. We could have paused it to have additional review, but to have the premier who addressed, had nothing to say in any of the deliberations or any of the lead up. We received no feedback. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Read someone's mind, right? If you don't have any instructions or any engagement or any statement of opinion, how can you possibly make decisions?
Okay, Sam, appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Todd.
Okay, take care. Sam Austin, District 5, Dartmouth Centre. Nearly 20% of Canadian small businesses may close from tariffs, according to the CFIB. We'll talk about this when we come back. All right, nearly 20% of Canadian small businesses are at risk of having to shut down in as little as 6 months as owners grapple with higher costs brought on by tariffs, new data suggests. Joining me here in studio is Duncan Robertson, Senior Policy Analyst, Nova Scotia with Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Duncan, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so another kind of grim statistic I'm sure you'd rather not be talking about, right?
No, absolutely. This is not how we want to spend our summers, talking about tariffs and the impacts they're having on our members. But like you said, we surveyed our members, and those who have faced financial costs as a result of these tariffs, 1 in 5 will consider closing in the next 6 months. Additionally, we look forward, to around 4 in 10 of our members who say if something doesn't change in the next 12 months, there's going to be some difficult situations and decisions for their businesses. So it's not a good number at all. When we look across Canada, around 7 in 10 of our members have been impacted in some way by one or more tariffs. The top tariff that we're seeing is the impact of the tariff on steel and aluminum, both the American tariff and the Canadian counter tariff, and that's impacting our members. 58% being impacted by Canadian counter tariffs. 1 in 3 predict to be impacted by the change in the $800 exception, called the de minimis exception. But just kind of the big issue there is if you're shipping a good that's under $800, you would otherwise be you'd be exempt from any kind of tariff. But now the Americans are talking about taking that away. So even for small changes or for small shipments, it's going to be there. So it's a difficult time. And at the end of the day, small businesses are trying to absorb these costs as much as they can, but they're simply running out of runway, and we need to see some changes very soon, I would say.
Okay, so changes meaning a deal reached somehow between Canada and the U.S. So it comes down to that, right?
It could be a deal. Of course, we also agree that a good deal is better than no deal. But the second worst option is not having a deal, because we do have that ongoing uncertainty. But what the government can do, particularly the federal government, to add certainty is they have collected billions of dollars in those counter tariffs. We want to see that revenue directed back to small businesses to support these businesses who have paid into these retaliatory tariffs. That could come in the form of eliminating the small business tax rate or bringing that down to 0% temporarily. Rebates like we saw relative to the carbon tax rebates, but provincially as well. I will say the provincial government has been sitting on $2 million, their contingency fund that was brought forward in the spring budget. We have not seen any rollout of that whatsoever. It's been about 6 months since that budget was introduced, and we have heard from small businesses who could access that money. So it's on all orders of government to really add some certainty where they can, when it's incredibly uncertain to deal south of the border, make it more certain to deal here in Canada.
All right, so that tariff money, how many billions did you say that was?
I don't know the exact number, but it is in the billions of dollars.
Okay, so billions of dollars. Is there an accounting for it? Is that just going into general revenue, or where's that money going?
We don't really know. We haven't seen a real plan. There's a couple announcements here and there. There was an announcement federally to support to support businesses in the steel and aluminum industry. But again, we're looking for some broad-based support for small businesses. Around 7 to 10 again of our members have been impacted in some way. So there is room, we think, for some support, either, again, reducing taxes on small businesses, providing some financial support, just to really see from the government, the federal government, that they also see small businesses as a role here and are being impacted, and that the federal government has a role to play to support them.
Yeah, and the challenges for small businesses go on and on. I'm just reaching for something that I teed up earlier, and it's kind of off topic, but it's relevant, and that's CRA and people having difficulty getting through to CRA. And I would think for your members, this would be a point of frustration. 5% of calls get through to a live agent right now, and I would think that's just another layer of the challenges of a small business owner, right, of dealing with taxation and CRA. I would think that's just one of many issues that are happening right now.
Yeah, it's not just the taxation; it's just the red tape, like you said, not being able to access, a live agent, which is incredibly important for a small business. Sure. They can't sit on the phone for hours and hours on end. They have to run their business. So when they have questions and they're not getting responses, that's a concern. And we've highlighted a number of government agencies during our Red Tape Awareness Week who have added red tape to small businesses, particularly around service standards, things like that small businesses don't see, the taxes they're paying as seeing as a good return in services, which is a concern. And it just, again, like you said, an adding of red tape to small businesses at a very difficult time. And we need to see government really get on board. They want to build one Canadian economy that has to include small businesses, and it has to create an environment where they're reducing red tape. To the federal government's, they are working to reduce red tape. They're looking at auditing and et cetera. Mm-hmm. But look, it does require, some good services for small businesses. Absolutely.
And uncertainty is, again, that is the death knell of any business, right? And in particular, small business, it is the uncertainty is palpable, isn't it?
Yeah, to be able to run your business effectively, it does mean that you have to look, 6, 12, 18 months in the future and at least have an understanding of what's going to be out there. But with the tariffs, with the ongoing economic realities, it's that much more difficult. We're seeing that reflected in optimism levels for our members, particularly when we look at long-term optimism. We're seeing optimism levels lower than we saw during the pandemic, which is definitely a concern in the long term. And again, it is down to, governments to create a good environment. It's down to us as consumers for supporting local small businesses whenever we can, getting out there, supporting local. 66 cents out of every dollar spent at a small business stays in that local community. So there's economic benefits for us as well. So it's going to be a long-term gain. We're not going to fix this uncertainty in just a month or two. It's going to take a real concerted effort by all orders of government, and we hope we can get there because our small businesses definitely need it.
Yeah, I would think when it comes to small businesses, the ones that provide services like home renovations and kind of that stuff that Amazon can't do, right, or that type of thing. Those are kind of probably the businesses that they're going to survive no matter what, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is just, I would say it's a difficult situation for many small businesses. They'll do what they can to stay open. There is, like you said, that competition with, online sellers like Amazon, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But look, it's really down to dealing with that uncertainty and ensuring that we can support our small businesses no matter what sector they're in. But particularly when we go back to tariffs, there's that indirect and direct impact. So if you're a importer of aluminum, you're going to be paying a lot more money. If you're a brewer, that's put them, for example, they use aluminum cans. If they're importing that from the States, that's an added cost to them, and that's a difficult issue for them. But then there's indirect. If you're a trucker and the supply chain disruptions are going on, that's going to impact your sector. If you're a wholesaler and you have and you usually have American customers, you're seeing that demand go down. That's going to impact your bottom line. So we see sectors across the board being impacted by this, and it's important that again we deal with that uncertainty. I know I've said it again on this today, but that's really what we're thinking about. That's not just the flavor of the month; that's been the flavor of the year, and we really need everyone to get on board to support our small businesses.
Duncan, always appreciate you coming in. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime.
Okay, Duncan Robertson, Senior Policy Analyst with CFIB Nova Scotia. Tim Powers when we come back. All right, joining us for a weekly chat is Tim Powers, Summa Strategies, Abacus Data, friend of the show. Tim Powers, the Yankees, my goodness gracious, I watched the Yankees last night, and they disappointed me against the Red Sox. It's just, I don't know what's up with this team.
It's wild, though, but it's good for the Blue Jays. You and I can probably share a mutual appreciation of the team above our Yankees right now. When these two teams keep cannibalizing each other, it helps the Blue Jays, particularly after they lost 2 games in Pittsburgh. But I got to tell you, the most fun about all of this baseball run this year, Todd, is my 10-year-old son has gotten right into it. He loves the dynamics and mechanics of pitching. He started playing baseball this year, so it's really kind of fun. It reminds me of my when I was a kid with my dad who loved baseball. So I was trying to explain to him why I like the Yankees, and then I said, "Oh, my friend Todd Veinotte." Was like, "Okay, you don't have to explain anything else."
Yeah, but you're going to end up being a Blue Jay fan, aren't you? I know it.
We were Expo fans, though. Newfoundlanders were Expo fans, right? It was hard to convert to the Jays, but it was hard not to cheer for them in 92, 93.
Yeah, for sure. Remember Andre Dawson and Gary Carter and Tim Wallach? Those?
Rodney Scott. You and I are aging there. Warren Cromartie, Rusty
first
Staub.
Yeah, that's right. The Expos were
Spaceman. We can't forget Bill Lee.
Good New Brunswicker. The Expos were a powerhouse, probably the best team to never win a World Series, I would say.
Oh, yeah, I remember Blue Monday. I mean, now the audience is like, Monday. What are those two idiots talking about? 1982, Blue Monday? What did he do?
That's right. Yep. Anyway, we digressed down Nostalgia Road, which is always nice. All right, so Pierre Poilievre, man, he looks to be back. He says he's back in the saddle. I know that's a bad analogy, but he appears to have some wind in his sails. Step in or jump in his step at this point, kind of buoyed by this election. Good on him, I suppose, right? He got it done. He did what he had to do. Give him credit where it's due, I suppose, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, you lose when you don't expect to in your own riding, which you've held for nearly, I guess he did hold it for 20 years, and then you go out. Look, he should have never, there was no way he was going to lose the by-election, but as you and I know from our feeble athletic attempts at running, you still have to go out and do the race, right? You still have to put one foot in front of the other. So he's got some wind in his sails around all of that. If I'm him, though, and I'm not, but I would be, I'd also be a bit more measured about it all. But you've seen in his early sort of commentary a revision to where he was comfortable. Now, why is that happening after, legions of people have said he needs some moderation? Well, his next big race, of course, is in January with the Conservative leadership review vote. So I don't think you're going to see much of a change in tone then, because the people that support Pierre want him to be as vicious and critical and punchy towards the Liberals as he's ever been. And if he steps back a little bit too much from that now, he risks losing some of their support.
Does the tough on crime agenda, that obviously plays to the base, but does that have enough broad appeal?
I think it does more. I'm sure it's the same in Halifax. When I was home last week in St. John's, I was hearing lots about crime. And, you've got this national story now that's been dominating the news here in Ontario about the guy in Lindsay, Ontario, who was defending his home and has been charged by the police. Poilievre went out and tweeted on that. Look, we don't know all the facts, of course, but on the surface, it's like, what? I can't defend my home? And the other guy who tried to burglarize me, I beat him up, and now I'm facing charges. So you're going to expect him to leap on all of that.
Yeah, I heard Doug Ford yesterday kind of talking really off the cuff and quite cavalier about all of that. And I couldn't help but think that perhaps he should be a little more judicious in his comments, because he is obviously playing and pandering to the emotion of people. And I'm not saying that they're not justified in feeling that way, but I would think that as a premier, you have to be careful, do you not, what type of messaging you're delivering when it comes to this type of thing? What are your thoughts?
All right, I'm going to make it very much nostalgic for you and I. We don't want Death Wish moments. So for people who don't know, Google Death Wish, a great film starring Charles Bronson about a vigilante who pushes back against crime. You have to be you have to be a bit more judicious, but I think there's a greater just in places I've been, I don't know if it's true across the country, but people are feeling a little bit more unsafe than they were for a whole bunch of reasons, and there's still anxiety from the economy, from the pandemic in our part of the world, from the forest fires. So, we're a bit more emotional right now and sensitive than we tend to be. So crime is always something politicians may play off in those moments. But if you're the premier like Doug Ford, yeah, you can say he could have said, look, I don't understand why this guy is being charged. We all have a right to defend our home, and left it there. But he went further. He
went a lot further, basically saying that he would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And I just, look, anyway, I don't want to beat it around, but it just seems to me that from a legal perspective, you need to be careful. That's all. Anyway, let's shift gears, talk about Mark Carney and this phone call that he had with Donald Trump, calling it productive and wide-ranging. What does that mean? I mean, what can we take away from where we're at with this trade deal or not as of right now? What are your thoughts?
I think if he's using language like that, it suggests something is up. And I know he was supposed to, do some travel, and some of that's been altered. And I'm, the speculative part of me is wondering, is he going to Washington? Maybe. I don't know. I have no proof on all of that, so I don't want to go down a speculatory hole. But when you're commenting like that, given the way Trump vacillates, you probably commenting like that with a sense of, as much as you can with Donald Trump, that maybe we're a little closer. And maybe he's doing Trump a favor too. I mean, Carney's getting a lot of criticism, which I don't think is fair, but I get why people are giving it to him for, being too docile towards Carney, not having his elbows up, the whole thing Poilievre launched into, which Poilievre can easily launch into because he can say all of that. But Carney is still kind of in the pandering mode with Trump. And we'll only know if that is good when we see something that benefits us. So, the more positive language about a call with Trump is kind of in that pandering vein, which suggests they're working on something.
Well, it seems to me that everybody's pandering to Trump, right? That seems to be the modus operandi for world leaders, in particular at the White House. Except for Vladimir Putin, the only one who doesn't pander to him, right?
But they got to stand in front of some cool jets in Alaska. I thought we were reliving. I thought that was the original Top Gun, not Maverick. There,
I know.
Gosh.
I know. What was your takeaway? To me, that was a bizarre. The whole thing was
so bizarre.
It was bizarre. What's your kind of broad strokes takeaway on that whole thing?
The only person who was missing was good old Sarah Palin, because remember, she could see Russia from her window.
That's right.
I think the truest statement, Todd, is this, that Trump is doing international diplomacy, if you can even call it that, the way he did real estate, right? And you've heard this analysis, but I think it's bang on, that usually in diplomacy you spend months and months, as they are in Washington now, negotiating the principles. The leaders don't pop in until after. Trump has kind of taken the view that, Vladimir Putin is this big developer that he knows, and they'll go mano a mano and figure it out. I think that plays right into Putin, right? I think that plays right into Putin, but I guess we will see. But it's a kind of a backwards way of dealing with global relations. But hey, when has Trump ever done anything that people did in the traditional playbook?
Yeah, Trump looked extremely uncomfortable during that whole thing, and Putin really kind of upstood him in a way. Do you think that Putin came out the winner?
From what I saw, yeah. I mean, but Putin's going to come out the winner until he's not, right? I mean, arguably, and I mean, no offense to our friends of the Ukraine, many of which are in Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, but he has won that with the United States. Zelensky, for as admirable as he is, doesn't sort of appeal to Trump in the same way. I mean, Trump's long game is, hey, I think his long game is, hey, Vladimir Putin's the world's strongman. If I can get him to respect me and get stuff done, then people will think I'm the world's strongest man. And, Putin's been playing Trump like a fiddle from my perspective.
What are your thoughts on Zelensky's visit to the White House? He almost wore a suit. It was close to a suit, eh?
Who wears suits anymore, Todd? I mean, but I guess you do at the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly he had changed his dressing style. And look, they have to deal with Washington. There's no two ways around it. Zelensky, Ukraine, they need Washington. So it's got to be so frustrating for Zelensky. But I think it was a more productive meeting. But what are we, 3 years into this, 4 years into this?
Yeah.
I mean, until it stops, we can analyze meetings to the high heavens, but it's still going on. There's still people dying. Russia's still trying to vacuum up territory. Vladimir Putin is demonstrating no interest in lessening his territorial ambitions, and that ought to concern us all.
Yeah, and there was some talk the fact that Canada might have been a bit snubbed by not being invited to that meeting. Keir Starmer and others were there. Anything? Can we read anything into that, or what are your thoughts?
Well, we had the phone call, which was positive.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you can read into it, but I'm equally sure, part of Carney's thinking was, well, do I want to go down there and be a puppet when I don't have a deal? Because what I just said would be some of the commentary, I suspect, here in Canada. Mark Carney still has a good lead at the polls. He has strong approval ratings and the like, but he still has to manage this pretty well to make sure he gets a proper political runway out of the fact that there's still no deal. And at some point, people are going to say, all right, well, what kind of economic state are we in? We elected you because you were the person we felt best could manage this, and you haven't gotten us anything. So he doesn't want to, he's got to manage the pandering with the standing back at certain times.
Well, to wrap things up, you rocked the suit jacket pretty good on TV, Tim, so I'll give you that. How's that for pandering?
Oh, gee, well, you know what? I'm just trying my Zelensky. I hear you're having some days off. You enjoy those, buddy. I mean, I love Dan, but he's no Todd.
All right, pal. Talk again.
Take care, buddy.
Okay,
Bye.
Take care. Tim Powers, Summa Strategies, Abacus Data, friend of the show. When we come back, Beyond the Count, homelessness in Western Nova Scotia. That when we return.
X.
Rural homelessness is often hidden, occurring in cars, campers, backcountry locations, overcrowded homes, or from couch to couch. Yet the service providers who participate in service-based counts and point-in-time counts are seeing the same alarming trend. Homelessness is increasing and the needs are becoming more complex. Dr. Mary Sweatman, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia Research Associate, also a professor in the Department of Community Development at Acadia University, joins us to talk about all of this. Dr. Sweatman, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, so I've heard the saying that it's important, if you're going to fix something, you need to be measuring it, and that way you can know you've got some metrics, and that's what's at play here, right?
Yeah, exactly, and this is why we do this work, is for the service providers in our region, so that they can use the numbers to apply for funding and advocate for changes.
Okay, so tell us about some of the data that you've uncovered here.
Sure. Yeah. So this, first of all, this is in the western region of Nova Scotia, and we engaged with over 47 organizations, trained them on how to fill out this survey that allows us to get an estimate of how many people are experiencing homelessness that are connected to services. So really important to note that this is an underestimation because we're not counting those that don't have contact with a service organization or a frontline organization. And so we collected data on different types of homelessness according to the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness definition, which has 4 typologies. And we were able to come up with these numbers for each of the regions and then also within the whole Western zone. And this is really to try to, again, like I said at the beginning and what you pointed to really help our organizations locally to apply for funding and advocate for change. And so the total number of adults 16 years and older in the region, in the Western zone, was 506. But we also were able to capture how many children are associated with those adults that we captured. And so really the number is much more than that we were able to see that are over 166 children were also part of those numbers, those adults.
Do you think there's still a kind of a misnomer out there that homelessness is not a small community problem? Is that out there?
I think so. I think we're starting to shed more light on that. But for a long time, it was seen as not existent because it kind of shows up as hidden or invisible in our small communities because of the way, as you said at the onset, that sometimes it looks like it doesn't look the same as in urban settings. So it could be couch surfing or living in woods or in houses that are not fit for living. So it just appears differently. And I think that there's also perhaps a romanticization of small town rural life, that we take care of each other. And I certainly think that we do in some respects, but I think that has created this idea that, well, of course that wouldn't happen in rural places in Canada, but it does, and it's rising and it's alarming.
And there's no magic bullet, right? There's no one thing. That's the challenge with this. It's so many layers to the issue and so many layers to possible solutions, and therein lies the challenge, right? And then you add to that the political nature to it all, and you got a huge problem with a lot of complex layers to it. Not easy fixed.
Oh, absolutely. You're totally right. It's so complex. It needs an intersectoral response that's looking at housing from multiple angles and looking at social services from multiple angles. And I have to say, one of the most enjoyable parts of this work, and it's hard, as you can imagine, doing this kind of research, but it is working with the coalitions, the housing coalitions in the region who care so deeply, who understand the complexities and are really advocating for change. And the work that they're doing is absolutely amazing. And the nonprofits that are within those coalitions, it's just incredible. But they are under-resourced. They need supports. And it's incredibly complex. Those solutions that have to happen from a prevention point of view, as well as an emergency response point of view, along that whole spectrum.
Okay, what are some, when we talk about these things, and inherently it's I don't want to say negative, not the right way of putting it, but what are perhaps some lights that you could point to, some wins? Are there some wins that we could look at here?
I think that there are some growing examples in our communities that we should be looking at as examples or watching closely as they develop. I'm really excited, for example, about the work of Open Arms in Kentville, who's partnering with the Nova Scotia Department of Opportunities and Social Development for different programs around outreach. And I think those are going to be really exciting to watch and see unfold and then replicate in other communities. They're doing one that is the first of its kind called Scattered Site Support Housing Program. And so I think there are some lights. I also think the work at Policy Outreach is incredible, and again could be an exemplar for other people, other organizations in other areas. And I'm just naming those two, but there are these lights all over the province of organizations being creative and innovative around solutions. And so if we can uplift and amplify those and resource more, then I do think we can have an impact. I do want to believe that there's hope.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, you wouldn't do what you do, right? We wouldn't. That's the point behind this whole report. It's hope.
Yeah, exactly, and that these are that this is an issue that affects us all, and so we all really need to step up and step into solution-based approaches.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you shining a light on it. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Dr. Mary Sweatman, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia Research Associate, also Associate Professor in the Department of Community Development at Acadia University. And again, we talk about homelessness every week at least here, on sometimes multiple times on the show. And look, we have to at some point, I suppose, share some optimistic viewpoint, but it's difficult when you look at all the layers to it. Again, drug addiction. You've got socioeconomic challenges. You've got affordability issues. You've got government policy. You've got food insecurity. I could go on and on and on. And encampments. How do you deal with all of that? You've got it's just so multi-layered, folks. I'm not sure what the answers are. I don't know if there's any reason for optimism, But at some point, you have to think that somehow we can figure something out. But there's no magic bullet to the homelessness situation. There just is not, just like most things. Speaking of most things, what's on your mind today? We've got an open hour, and now is a great opportunity to get in on the action, get in on the fun. Perhaps you heard some things discussed throughout the week that you've agreed with. Perhaps you've heard some things that you disagreed with. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000, whether it be the stadium or the potential stadium in HRM or whatever it is. 902-405-6000. An open hour when we come back.
Facts.
All right, what is on your mind on this Friday? We've got lots of open lines for you folks. Give us a call, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Again, it's a Friday. Perhaps you've heard some things discussed this week that you disagreed with. I'm sure that many of you, that would be the case, and that's a good thing. I'm glad. And perhaps some of the things you've heard, you have agreed with. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Give us a call. We've got open lines for you. Again, 902-405-6000. Earlier in the show, I had Sam Austin on. He's, of course, an HRM counselor, veteran HRM counselor, represents District 5, Dartmouth Centre. And he was talking about the fact that their council is frustrated that the provincial government has rejected its municipal regional plan. Because Sam Austin says a lot of work went into it, a lot of effort went into it, and it's a greatly detailed document with many layers, and the provincial government has simply said no, it's not acceptable. It doesn't focus enough on housing and getting housing built. So this is another example of the provincial government being, I suppose, not satisfied with what the municipality is doing, with what council is doing. Of course, they've intervened greatly when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to bike lanes and Morris Street in particular. And the premier has he's not been hesitant in the least to criticize council. So what are your thoughts on this, folks? Do you support the province's involvement in HRM issues and council's issues? Do you think it's a good thing? Is it necessary? Is it a reflection on this council? Is it potentially politically motivated here, a power move, if you will, on behalf of the provincial government? Is this an opportunity that Tim Houston sees to exert his authority over the municipality and over council in general? And does this council need to be governed? What are your thoughts on this, folks? Does this hurt the brand of council? The stadium, of course, another big issue discussed this week, because council is going to study the feasibility of a stadium at the Wanderers grounds. Of course, the Wanderers are playing tonight. Had Derek Martin on the show yesterday, and he appeared frustrated, and I think he said as much. Because it's been 7 years now, they've had a pop-up stadium there. They don't have running water. They don't have bathroom facilities. And he says in order for the team to succeed long-term and to be viable long-term, they need a better option. And this, although it served its purpose, will have a lifespan. So what are your thoughts on this, folks? Should we spend the money as a municipality and build a soccer stadium at the Wanderers grounds? Yes or no? And why or why not? Now, of course, Derek Martin says that, and the municipality said that it could be used for much more than just simply soccer, that the municipality could use it for a variety of things, including potentially even concerts. This email from Don, then we'll go to the phones. 902-405-6000, by the way, is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call. We'll get some open lines for you. 902-405-6000. Don says this via email, says, I was trying to find out how often the Moncton Stadium is used. I came across the following comment on Reddit. It says, you are referring to the one event per year that takes place there. It sits vacant the other 363 days a year. Each event that took place cost city taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the teams here, and the revenues go back out west with the teams. Anyway, I'm not sure where. Again, Reddit. You can take that for what it is. Anyway, I didn't proofread this email before I read it, but anyway, he goes on to say, relocating events in Halifax to a new stadium, events that could easily be held at another venue in Halifax should not be included as an argument that a stadium is needed. High school and university sporting events can easily be played at other locations. These events only need 500 seats at the most. In conclusion, I'm just not sure that a stadium would be used enough. There are white elephant stadiums all over the world. Will we never learn? Comes from Don. Okay, folks, what's on your mind? Give us a call. What are your thoughts on that, or whatever else you have in your mind? 902-405-6000. Rick's giving us a call. Hello, Rick.
Hey, good morning.
Hi there.
I heard Councillor Austin on today opining the province's rejection of the municipal plan.
Yeah.
I have a couple of thoughts on that. One, I think myself, just from my standpoint here in Dartmouth, that this is the worst council we've ever had, and I disagree with almost everything Sam Austin does. So just starting there, there's two things I would like to point out. One, HRM is not a municipality like any other municipality. It represents more than half of the population of Nova Scotia. So it's not like Lunenburg or anywhere else. It has a specific size that eliminates any comparison to any other municipality. It's like a separate province almost. And the governance here is driven by, and I've mentioned this a number of times, driven by a basic ideology that climate change is the most important thing. And I've mentioned that I do bike counts on the most traveled bike route in Dartmouth, and from any standpoint, they're dismal. From a high of 50 to 60 bikes during rush hour, which is 2 hours, to a low of 2 to 12 during the winter, only in good weather. It's crazy. So the idea that parking garages should have electric car chargers is, I would never myself want to live in that kind of a building, mainly because of the fire risk. And there have been lots of examples of that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the problem I have over here in Dartmouth with this new information that just came in regarding Sullivan's Pond. And I've called about this before, and it really is a mess, because during a conversation with the Department of Environment, and I will send you the emails that I got from the Department of Environment and public statements by Sam to show how they do not quite jive. But we just learned that Sullivan's Pond is not part of a water course as defined by the Department of Environment. It is actually a stormwater holding pond. So you have the jewel of Dartmouth Parks right in the middle of the city, the one that thousands of people use every month, is basically a holding pond. And right now, it is suffering from the lack of water being allowed to flow in from Lake Veinotte. Mm-hmm. And this is evidenced by anybody who walks by Lake Veinotte. You can see that the level might be down a little bit. But they could easily allow, and this would be Halifax Water, could do it, but they need some kind of direction to do it, I guess. Staff seems to have made that decision to not allow any water from Lake Veinotte into Sullivan's Pond. So right now the pond is so low that no water could flow out of it for a long time. We'd need a whole bunch of rain beyond anything that's in the forecast. But Lake Veinotte is holding paddling regattas, and the level looks fine. The reason for that is political. It's not for any other reason. And the Department of Environment can't get involved unless Halifax Water asks them. It's a bizarre thing, but I'll send, rather than go on and on and on about this on this call, I'll send you that information so that you can parse it right in front of your eyes. This is all written stuff, not my opinion. It's just what both the Department of the Environment and Sam Mawson have said about the situation. And there's just another caveat that one of the reasons that Sam Mawson says we can't have any water in Lake Veinotte go into Solomon's Pond is that it'll drain Lake Veinotte, which is poppycock. The amount of water that Solomon's Pond would take just to fill up to the top level of the fish ladder, in other words, none would spill out, but the pond would actually be full, and the geese and everybody else. Fish are dying. I did an E. coli test with the government. The results of that were, I don't know if this means anything to you, 4,800 parts per 100 milliliters of
okay,
water.
we're kind of getting into the weeds,
Gotcha.
Rick.
Getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
I'll send you all that stuff, but it's a disgusting mess, and I particularly blame Sam Mawson.
Okay, pal. Appreciate the call, bud. Take care. 902-405-6000. Peter, hello.
Yeah, good morning, Todd. I'd like to advise folks that the Clam Harbor sandcastle situation has been shut down for Sunday. 10,000 people normally go there, and HRM is saying it's based on fire conditions and the travel ban. So people need to be aware that Clam Harbor, the beach, actually borders on the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And the excuse that HRM is using that there's only one road in and, one way in and one way out. That's the same thing when you go out to Glen Arbor. There's only one way in and one way out. Number of subdivisions throughout HRM. So I've looked at the data from yesterday's fire weather index, and as of yesterday, less than 30% of the province was in extreme. And folks just need to know, that's a major tourism event, and it's being shut down, and it's unjustified.
And is the beach itself still open, Clam Harbor? Is it Peter?
Yeah, you can still go to the beach. You can go down there as long as it's not a competition, apparently,
right.
And you can make all the sand castles you want. But the issue being is that this is kind of getting off the rails now, Todd, right? Like I had another friend going to a golf tournament today, and some of the holes are in the woods, but he can do that.
Yeah, that doesn't.
So I'm looking at this.
Yeah, you're right. That's a complete contradiction, and I've said this on the show already before. You make a great point. This is. I mean, on the surface, it seems an overreach to cancel sandcastle on the beach, and all that goes with it. Meanwhile, you can go and jump on a golf cart and go deep into the woods. And you all know as well as I do, people are smoking cigarettes and weed and whatever else out there, right? You know that.
Yeah, one other point too, Sean. Apparently yesterday or the day before, the province also made another change that if you're a guide, a hunting and fishing guide, you can get a permit now to bring in people from other countries and other provinces to hunt and fish. Yet they'll be hunting and fishing on the rivers in the woods around the province. Well, the people who live here pay taxes and expect services. They're not going to be allowed to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So the hypocrisy has just gone, it's so far off the rails, Todd, that's crazy. And when you look down at the fire right now, for example, down in Dalhousie, the fire hasn't grown in the last couple of days, right? And so that's the result of the fire weather index data that we relied on every day since 1970 to predict what was going to happen in fires and determine, what you can and can't do in the province in regards to burning. Yeah. And that system was completely ignored beginning on July 30th by the Premier. So common sense has basically left the building here, and people need to stand up because I don't know what's next. But I'm in agreement with you, Todd, that it's just not across the board. And it's, you pick one group and it's okay for them, but the average person, you can't do things, and it's just nonsense to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's where people get frustrated with this type of story because Peter, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, you said there's 10,000 people that go to this thing a year. 10,000 is that the number that you said?
Yeah, that's the number that I read in I think it was a CBC document. But
wow.
Then I did a little research, and it's averaged 10,000 people a year. So okay, in a local economy,
that's huge.
These guys are all stopping for gas and they're spending money.
Yeah. Especially on the Eastern Shore, Peter, where we know it's limited, right? Your economic viability is limited.
Yeah, and the other issue, Todd, all somebody would have to do if fire is a concern, is the organizers were just, HRM could have made some form of a condition that they would have had some form of volunteer firefighting capacity on the site. That's simple.
Could be a teaching opportunity, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once again, HRM and the province have dropped the ball, and I think people are finally going to. I'm looking here this morning, sitting on my deck. I think it was 54 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, stupid. This is dumb. It's absolutely stupid, Peter. And
thanks, all right, buddy. I agree.
Thanks for bringing it to my attention. I wasn't aware of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. A follow-up to the chat that I just had concerning the Sandcastle Day at Clam Harbor being canceled. David Hensby, who's the councillor representing that region, gave us a call. David, hello.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm well. You?
A little disappointed. We had to cancel the Sandcastle Day, but it's for the wildfire risk. People may not be familiar, but normally the Department of Transportation and Public Works go down and mow all the grass on the side of the road, all the grass, weeds and stuff to make for parking capacity.
Yeah. There's
over 10 kilometers of roadside parking available for this event. That's how many people, tens of thousands of people come out, hundreds and hundreds of cars. The problem was the Department of Public Works decided not to do any mowing the last few weeks because of how tinderbox dry it is. They're afraid of any sparks causing any fires and stuff. So they halted all side of the road activities. So that kind of put a kibosh on us trying to maintain the side of the road for parking. So we're fearful of any cars parked with hot exhaust pipes or someone dropping a cigarette butt. It would just ignite the whole place up. That's what we're concerned about. So that's why we had to take the hard decision of canceling the Sandcastle Day this year because of the wildfire risk.
Well, how much blowback have you received, David? I'm sure that some people support the idea, but how much have you heard on this?
Well, there's some, disappointment from a lot of locals and businesses in the area because a lot of them ramp up for this big day. This is the biggest day for traffic on the Eastern Shore on the whole summertime season. Wow. But it is difficult. So hopefully some people out there in the neighborhood are buying a little extra from the local businesses just to support them for those who ramped up for extra sales of baked goods and stuff like that. But it's a difficult decision we had to make, but in a worst case scenario, if we had a wildfire, that'd probably be much worse damage than loss of business.
Okay, so David, you stand by your decision.
Yes, it was a difficult one to do, but we had to do it for the sake of safety.
Okay, thanks, David. Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Gloria's giving us a call. Hello, Gloria.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for taking the call.
Sure thing.
I'm sorry I missed it.
By the way, I saw you on TV this week. You're looking great, by the way.
And you didn't see me doing the axe throwing. You didn't get that video. I went down to the Timber Lounge, excuse me, and sank the axe in the target.
Oh, is that right? Nice.
94 years old, not bad. I'll send you the clip.
Okay. Sounds good. What's on your mind?
I'm sorry that I missed hearing the wise words from my counselor, Sammy Austin. I put little stock in anything that Sam says after seeing a counselor behave so irresponsible on the Morrow Street. He voted to rescind the motion and then added it back in. How ridiculous is that? Sam is playing, and I use the word playing because he thinks it's a game, two roles, the counselor and the spokesperson for the NDP. He even said during his diatribe that the Premier is throwing the opposition under the bus. What has that got to do with council, Todd? Nothing. And now the people on Slater Street, a street where during the election they displayed a lot of Sammy's signs. He betrayed them. He passed a motion to spend, or had it passed, $656,000 to refigure Slater Street, changing their traffic patterns, and the people on Slater Street ask them what they think of them now. When I was a councillor, Todd, and they wanted to sell Brightwood, and I was a member of Brightwood for 20-some years at that time, and all the residents around there didn't want Brightwood sold. I went to bat for them, and I got the support of my colleagues and saved the golf course. That's what a good councillor does. They work for their residents, and they hear them, and they do what the residents who are paying the big taxes expect them to do. So now, when the residents are so dismayed by the actions of Sammy, you have to say you get what you deserve. When you weren't smart enough to know when they put the big concrete barriers on both ends of Slater Street, they didn't know that that was the beginning. So there you go. So as far as Sam Austin goes, as I say, he plays the role. It's a game with him. And one of the residents on Slater Street said, when he got in, he was very good. He had to be because he was following me. He wanted to show that a councillor does work, but that soon wore off. So don't put too much stock, anybody. Put too much stock in what Sam Austin does because he has his own agenda.
Well, someday, Gloria, I'd like to get you both on the phone and have a head-to-head. What do you think?
I'd love to get on the phone.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I'd love to get on the phone. I'd love to take him down to the axe throwing place.
Oh my goodness! So
not that I use them for the target.
No, that's
but
right.
I challenge them.
There you go. So we'll try and facilitate that. A head-to-head, you and Sam Austin. That should be great radio. Thank you, Gloria.
Okay.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Robert, hello.
Hello, how you doing, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad. I just wanted to call and wish my wife a 50th anniversary today.
50th. Wow, that is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, we've been together more than 50 years.
So what's been your secret to success?
The secret to success is never go to bed angry. Always go to bed happy. And you work on your marriage one day at a time.
Yeah, just as simple as that, eh?
Yes, and we do a lot of different things together that we enjoy doing together.
Yeah, but look, no marriage is perfect, right? I'm sure you had to work at it, right? That's what it's all about. You got to work at these things, right?
Yeah, that's right. You got to work on it every day.
Every single day. Every 50 years.
Right.
What's your name?
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Is she listening?
No, but I'm going to see her. She works at Walmart in Bears Lake. I'm going to go take some flowers to her.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, listen, Robert, I wish you a happy 50th and congratulations. And you sound like you're a really decent guy. So thanks for calling.
Thank you very much.
Okay, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. That's nice. Mike, hello.
How you doing today?
I'm well. You?
Good. I'm for the stadium and also against the stadium. If you're going to build a stadium, you build it for the future. And from what I understand, the building the stadium that size is not exactly, big enough. So to me, if you want to build one to everybody use.
Right. So Mike, you don't think that this stadium would fit that bill then? Is that what you're telling me?
No. At least when they're looking to build the CFL stadium, everybody could use it. Everybody. But with this one here, it's in a small area, and what are you going to use it for? Play soccer? That's it. You need to put track and field there. You need to do all things there. And what they're proposing is for themselves I am not for that.
Yeah, I must agree. It does seem to be the concept that it would be this multi-purpose facility. I don't really see how that works either. I tend to agree with you, Mike. I think it might be a little limited in what you can use it for, and that to me is a real issue for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Take care.
No worries.
All right. 902-405-6000. John, hello.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. You?
Not too bad. Right up until Wednesday, when Sam Harbor Sandcastle was canceled, I was okay with the burn ban, but I don't think council gave this any thought. They canceled it 5 days before the event without being proactive. I mean, there were so many things that could have been done to keep this event going, because people from all over come to this. I live on the beach. I have 3.5 acres just around the corner. It takes me a minute and a half to go to the actual Clam Harbor beach. There's so many things that they could have done. I mean, last year they mowed, and this year with the dry, they could have had a water truck just to ensure that there's no fires. They could have put signs up where everybody parks on the side of the road to say absolutely no smoking. They could have had volunteers or custodians walking up and down just to ensure the safety of everyone, because there's a lot of parking inside the park as well. And last year, I used my land for people to park on. I mean, a lot of people come, and it brings a lot of money into the area, like Weber's at the corner where you turn down to Clam Harbor. I mean, Michelle had flats of Pepsi, Coke, all the drinks, stacks of ice cream. I mean, people get prepared for this. People plan their designs for sandcastles, and they drive from the States probably as far as Ontario. I mean, last year, geez, amazing how many people show up, and they enjoy it. But there was no planning. I mean, they waited 5 days. I mean, they could have thought 3 weeks ago when all the bans were happening, they could have said, we got approximately 10,000 people on this tradition that's been going on for years. Let's see if we can keep this going. Get volunteers, put signs up, even maybe put a shuttle bus down Memory Lane to pick people up. There could have been a host of things that could have kept this event going. I don't think they realize the impact it has, not just here locally, but from all around where people come from. I mean, this is not a small picnic event. This is 10,000 people. Like last year was crazy. So I don't understand it. They could have carpooled. They could have enticed people to say, carpool with others to keep the parking down. Volunteers walking up and down the roads because, I mean, the roads are obviously filled with cars. It could have been done, but it looks like Council Todd was not being proactive on this. They just probably thought of it. Oh, before lunch, we should cancel that, with no thought given. They could have done this 2 weeks ago if they were going to cancel.
Yeah.
If they still didn't want to put any time in to say, how can we keep this going? I mean, everything else has been canceled, but this is an event that can be controlled. I mean, there is a nice long walkway to the beach with woods on either side at some places, but you just have volunteers, And another thing, we're the event planners of this annual event told beforehand. Did they have a say in the matter? That's another thing. To me, it sounds like they came in Wednesday morning. Oh, Jesus, there's a sandcastle contest coming up. What do you want to do? Well, let's cancel it. And I like to find, I mean, you talk to a lot of people, Todd. I wonder if there was any thought given into this. Was it just right off the bat? Because I remember Dan Allstrand on Wednesday, I got some bad news, and it was just around 12. He said sandcastle contest was canceled. And that was it.
Yeah, no, listen, John. I think you make some really great points. I really do. I don't disagree with that. With the thing that it's hard to disagree with anything that you said. And I think valid points. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Doug's a first-time caller. Hello, Doug.
Hey, how you doing, Todd?
Doing well, you?
I'm doing well. I just want to give Gloria 2 thumbs up. I can't wait to hear her when she calls in, because she's common sense and straight shooter. And can't wait to hear her and Sam when you can line that up. That'd be great.
That'd be great radio, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Okay, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. Rafe, hello.
Good. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good. I just wanted to make a comment on this burn ban, that people seem to just jump to conclusions that this is a horrible thing. You know, with the Clam Harbor Festival, I thought the same thing. I thought, well, it's a beach. You know, there's lots of water, there's a fire. But the Hensby's explanation was absolutely spot on. You can't have cars. Well, first of all, you can't mow the side of the road, because if there's a spark, that causes a forest fire. You can't have 800 cars parked on the side of that road driving over grass with hot mufflers. If there's a spark, it's going up. And if you can't get a fire truck, and you're one of your callers was saying things like carpooling. Who's going to organize carpooling 10,000 people?
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, I'll put a water truck in there. If a fire breaks out, first of all, how's the water truck going to get there? By the time it gets there, you've got a forest fire. And my third point is, you feel bad for the businesses. They're going to make a lot of money. However, if this was to go ahead and there was a fire down there and some of these businesses burned down, do you think they would think that that's worth it? I think that the provincial government is doing what they can to minimize the risk of people's homes, people's lives, and the forests. We're in a situation here where literally a spark, or you put a bottle of Coke down, a glass bottle, and if the sun hits it in a certain direction, and you get that, you used to magnify and you used to burn wood, you take your magnifying glass and burn wood. That's all it would take. That's all it would take is one little spark, and people they jump to these conclusions that this is if this is what it takes to stay out of the woods for a while until we get rain, I think, listen, the risk is far too great to say, go in the woods. If you want, one guy's called last week and he said, they're taking away my right to exercise. He called in and he said, the government is taking away my right to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, this guy better be out in the woods running as soon as they open up. And if you want to exercise, go for a run in the city.
Okay, Rafe, what about the contradiction that golf courses? I know I've brought this up a number of times, but I think it's relevant. Golf courses are operating
private property.
Pardon me?
That's private property.
So
a government cannot.
Yes, it certainly can. Don't you remember the pandemic? It certainly can shut things down. 100% it can.
Well, people are going to die from a pandemic. We're talking about people breathing on each other.
We're talking about the government allowing an industry to continue and shutting down something like this. Is that not a contradiction? People smoke all the time on golf carts. I've golfed. I know it happens all the time.
Well, then the course themselves just bans it, and if they don't ban it, you've got it. It's a good point, but if the government, maybe the government can just shut down golf courses. And if they shut down golf courses, then they're going to have to shut, if that's the case, then just shut everything down. I agree with that. If that's what it takes, then maybe that's what they should do. But people have to realize that at least they're trying to minimize the extreme risk that we're having right now. I mean, maybe people should be banned from going on their own lawns.
Okay, Rafe.
Their front lawn. My front lawn is just baked.
Yeah, okay.
So
appreciate the call.
You've got a good point. I see your point.
Okay, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. Ross is giving us a call. Hello, Ross.
Hello, how are you this morning?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad. I was listening to your show, I repeat last evening. The gentleman on there said that Burnside was too far out of the way for people to go to. I'm just wondering how far. That's only out of the way for people who live in Halifax. The people live in Eastern Shore, Fall River, Bedford, Enfield. That go to the stadium and go watch a game. That's easy for them to get to, and it's a better place. I can't see putting a stadium in downtown Halifax. There's just not room. The traffic is bad enough down there now at any point in time, and adding more to it just doesn't make any sense. They talk about confused, like the traffic being congested all the time in Halifax. Well, would have moved to the other side of the bridge. There's lots of places over in Halifax in Dartmouth, and it seems like this council does not want to put anything outside of downtown Halifax. Dartmouth was a beautiful city before it was amalgamated. It still is a great place. Dartmouth, the Eastern Shore, all through there. But they don't want to put anything in Halifax. They want to put everything in downtown Halifax. I don't understand the reasoning behind that.
Well, Ross, I think steering that is the owner of the soccer club himself, Derek Martin, right? That's the location that they like, that they have had success, right? They're getting 6,200 people a game out there, so they like it, right?
But they have the same amount of people they went to Dartmouth, because a lot of people come from. I know people in Middle Muscatava that travel all the way in there to watch the games. People in Enfield, people in Fall River, people in Bedford Sackville. He says the same thing. It just seems that everything wants to go downtown Halifax, and now this weekend, if there's anything going on with the McKay Bridge shutdown, that's a problem. There's a lot of different ways to get out of Burnside. There's a couple ways to get out of Halifax. They've got to learn that everything can't be downtown Halifax. The council doesn't seem to recognize Dartmouth or Sackville or Bedford as someplace to expand to. They just seem like, I find this council is really bad for not allowing any expansion outside downtown Halifax. Okay, Ross, appreciate the call. Thank you. All right, take care. I want to read this email because I think it's on point, and we'll go back to the phones right afterwards. Gus says this: if HRM is so concerned about wildfire risk, which I don't disagree is a real risk at this time, have decided to cancel the Sand Council competition this weekend, why are they giving the go-ahead to the multiple matinee shows on the private beach located in a wooded area with only one way in and out? I believe approximately 2,000 people a show are expected all weekend, which began last night. As I'm sure you have been to the outdoor concerts, there's always much smoking going on, both inside and outside the concert ground. Have you ever been down to this area? It is located on a very narrow stretch of road with one way in and one way out, which has many houses along it, with a seasonal campground with many individual trailers extremely close together. With all the vehicles the event will attract, I don't know how emergency vehicles would ever get to this area if required. Interesting. That is an interesting comment, and again, a contradiction. This is why people are frustrated, because he's right. There are lots of contradictions going on. Mike, hello.
Hey, Todd. Happy anniversary to Robert and Rosemary for 50 years, and seems like he's still in love. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And the stadium, I'm all for a stadium, but they got to do their research and make sure it's in the right spot and make it available for everyone. Like, make it so we can have the Wanderers, and maybe someday CFL could use it. Maybe have preseason baseball, or maybe a AAA baseball teams and concerts. Pick a location where maybe they're planning someday. Maybe we'll get light rail and high-speed ferries. Make it close to that for exiting and getting there. So I'm all for it as long as they use their head and don't just shoot from the hip. I agree with a lot of the other callers that the Wanderers grounds, putting a stadium there, it's not a great spot, and it's kind of limited to only soccer, really.
Yeah, that's true. I think that when you break it all down, it would be a soccer stadium first and foremost, I think, and with because of that, you would have limited options for other things. That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're going to use taxpayers' money, then put it so everybody can use it. And room for expansion. If they want to grow the city core to 1 million people, then they should have no problem someday having CFL teams or bigger events or a big tennis event, anything, right?
Right. Okay, Mike, appreciate it. Thanks for the
All
call.
right, man.
Take
Have
care.
a good weekend.
All right, take care. Robert, hello.
Hello. I'd like to ask an important question about the provinces putting a hold on HRM's long-term housing plan. And one of the reasons given is the province does not want the requirement of having EV chargers put in new buildings and homes. And I'd like to ask why, because it should be relatively inexpensive and easy to put those EV chargers in. And with all this climate change we're seeing nowadays, fires and everything, the EV chargers are going to be an extremely important item to have in place everywhere when by 20 years from now, just about everyone will be driving EVs, because by that time they'll be as cheap to buy as the current gas guzzler equivalents. And furthermore, once you bought them, of course, the electricity to run them is far cheaper than the gasoline. So the day of everyone into EVs is coming. We need those EV chargers in place. And how could needing to install them slow down things, as the province claims? So I'd like to ask the question of the reasoning of this EV charger business of the province halting the HRM plans to require them.
Okay, Robert, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Alex, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, you?
I didn't get all the interview earlier with Sam Austin there, but just did the topic of the splash pad and the homeless shelter in Dartmouth come up at all?
No, I didn't ask him about that. I covered that yesterday with Tim Rosesco. I didn't get to it with Sam. I should have, actually.
Well, yeah, I'm just kind of curious what his comments would be on that. I mean, there's 2 news articles this week on both those subjects. The state of the splash pad in Dartmouth is abysmal.
Yeah, needles everywhere. Yeah, that's right.
I won't bring my kids to it, and I speak for a lot of parents I know. So, before he starts focusing too much on other people, maybe he should focus on his own accountability, his own legacy.
Yeah, it is a horrible story for sure. What's going on with that? It is. Alex, I should have brought it up, actually.
I'd love to get Gloria and him on at the same time.
Yeah, we're going to see what we can do to facilitate that.
Perfect.
Okay, pal, take care. All right, let's try and get one more on here quickly. Jim, go ahead quickly if you can.
Yep, real quick. 2 quick comments, and I got to go.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember when they first enacted this burn ban, the message was stay out of the woods and go to the beach. So the irony is pretty thick. Go to the beach, find something else to do, and I guess now you can't go to the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is, the messaging always seems to go back to, careless disposal of cigarette butts, and I'm definitely going to tell my age here, but when I grew up, I think 7 out of 10 at least people smoked, and probably 100% of them threw their butts out the window. And we had dry times then too. So I just think we have to maybe lay off of that excuse. It's just getting old.
Okay, Jim, appreciate the call. Take care. Thanks for the call, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We'll open the phone lines again on Monday. We'll take a quick break. All right, I came across this story on the CBC website this week. The headline, to capture the ups and downs of motherhood, this artist makes a self-portrait every day. Artist Alice Jennex says that her new series of self-portraits originally weren't meant to be shown. And joining us to talk about all of this is Alice. Hello, Alice.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well. Yourself?
I'm doing good, thanks.
All right. So I guess first of all, tell us about your work in general, your art in general. First off.
Yeah, sure. Well, this show, Chromatic States, it's a daily watercolor self-portrait project, and I began it when I was caring for my children. It sort of maps my experiences through color by documenting just the things that were going on every day, and it's also kind of just my attempt at finding space for my art in the rhythms of like caregiving and like all the daily routines that are pretty like monotonous at times, like laundry and cooking and cleaning. So I just used like naps and breastfeeding and small windows to ground myself and sort of also reflect on the postpartum period. Prior to this, like I did other artwork and art series, but this one is like the most vulnerable and kind of like most looking at my day to day.
How difficult is it to kind of capture yourself in this way?
I don't know. It's. Do you mean like the self-portrait?
Yeah,
process,
the self-portrait. Yeah, exactly. To be self-examining in that way, and to be honest with yourself and what your perception is, and translating that into something that is art.
Yeah. So for me, it had to start with writing. So I would kind of sit down and I would ground myself just in writing a few words about maybe how I was feeling, or if there was something that really was standing out about the day, so that I had at least that would begin the conversation. And then I used the palette that I had determined. So sort of to help my focus, I decided to use only 18 colors. And of those colors, I would then pick maybe 3 or 4 to move forward with. And the self-portrait, it's just a place to examine oneself, like you said, and whatever perspectives were changing or whatever dualities were happening, or maybe like the day could start off like really exciting and then it could become like really fatiguing in some way. So it just let me kind of, I don't know, experience that and be like, wow, okay, how do I begin this? And for me, that was like really loosely. So I start with like a big wash of color, and then I kind of work into the details, or decide, depending on the mood of it, it might be really light or it might be really saturated and have a lot of texture. That's kind of where I got to play with the project.
Okay, and then on display at the Craig Gallery in Dartmouth, how did that happen?
Yeah, I applied for the show. Honestly, I probably applied a couple of years ago, because the programming is so far in advance that you apply before, and you might have an idea for that project. I would have said I'm going to display figurative paintings probably, but then that wasn't what I was creating this past year. I started doing this kind of in my journal pretty quietly. I didn't really think I would show it because it was I felt it was quite personal, but I kept going with it, and then it sort of felt like I had a show in front of me, so I decided to display this work.
What's the response been?
It's been great. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a topic that isn't really explored that much in visual art. At least I think motherhood is a little bit. I'm starting to find more artists who are exploring motherhood and caregiving in their work, but it's often like I've noticed people are kind of coming to me with their stories, and that's really nice to hear. And they're like experiences being a parent, and they really resonate with that duality of like something great could happen, and then like by the end of the day you might be feeling completely different, or the day to day, like one day could feel something could happen, and then the next day it's almost like everything changes and everything feels different, or like my kid's development has changed so much. So I think people really resonate with that. It can feel consistent, but it can also feel like jarringly different.
So when you look at the portraits, and how many are there, by the way?
Well, in the show, there's just over 200, but there's more than that at home. I had to show a selection of them. There's probably about 280, maybe 300 in total. Okay, so when you look at it, does it instantly bring you to that moment in time? And can you say, I know exactly how I was feeling as a result of what you captured? Some of them, yeah. Some of them are really specific. Some of the things that happened in the past year were just so challenging that the portrait really captured some of that for me. Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it was, well, I can tell by what you're, by the conversation that it was cathartic in a lot of ways for you, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it gave me a place to, I think, to find myself and to make sense of all the changes that were happening. And I think it can be, I don't know, in a way it's like energizing for me too. Like it's exciting. It gives me something to focus on, and I love that. I think it's like healthy for me to do that. And then I think in vice versa, when something challenging happens, it's really good. That cathartic kind of time to reflect. It gave me a space to put all of that energy. So what's your message to mothers to be, first time mothers who are, what advice do you give? I don't know. It's a hard time. I would say like take it easy and start slow. There's a lot that can come up too. Like with my first, I felt like a lot of vulnerability came up, and I had to kind of enter the world. I was very like apprehensive to do that because I had this little baby with me, and that was a surprise to me. Like I had felt pretty confident about going anywhere, and then so I think there's got to be some space that's left for you to like heal, depending on how everything went, and to navigate things like carefully. I wouldn't like rush into anything. And this project for me was like, I certainly like started small. I started to think about it. I took time to figure out the palette that I wanted to use. At first, I wasn't even doing portraits. I just kind of painted anything that I saw, or like a burst of color, or like I'd paint like at the beach or something. But I began to really feel like there was more to explore to it if I focused more on that perspective change from day to day. So that's why I kind of honed in on like the portrait, which is always accessible to me too. You can just look in the mirror. But
yeah, do you feel as though that there's a lot of pressure on I would want to just isolate women, but to be the perfect mom? Is there that kind of that idea that if you're a mother, you should be extremely happy all the time and positive, and everything's going to be great all the time? Is that pressure out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that pressure's there, and I think you're tasked with like holding it all together, and there's expectations to be like I said, about kind of getting out in the world and doing things and activities. And sometimes I think for the child too, it's like the best place is to be at home, and the best thing is for their parents to feel good and grounded. So whatever it is that we need to do to be that way, I think with social media and things like that, you just see these examples, and sometimes pressure from other people, like, what are you doing? What are you doing for the kids? It's like, you're probably doing so much, and that doesn't feel good if you're not really taking care of your own needs, or if you've lost track of your own interests. So I do think it can be hard, and I think people should focus sort of on being consistent rather than like being great.
Being consistent in what way? What do you mean by that?
Just like how you can show up to your day and to your kids and like in your life. Mm-hmm. I think like I try not to think of perfection, and the portraits explore that a lot. Like there's ones that I think are just like terrible or unfinished, but that's what I got done that day. So the next day I was moving on to the next thing. And so there's like loss of control, and like perfection I think is a big one. And that kind of was a metaphor for like how I felt in my life too. Like I have to just move on and learn, and you maneuver through and you keep going. And so I do think sometimes like, parents can be judged pretty easily when you don't really understand like the full scope of situations for people.
All right, and if people want to see all of this, they can check it out at the Craig Gallery, correct? Let everybody know how they can see it.
Yeah, so Chromatic States is at the Craig Gallery, which is in Alderney Landing in Dartmouth, and it's on until August 24th, which is this Sunday. I'll be taking it down after 3 p.m., so you can see it over the weekend. You can also check out my work at alicejennex.ca and my Instagram at Alice Jennex.
And Jennex is Jennex, by the way, for those who want to know, because so they can check it out online or check it out. But I'm sure you'd love to see people visit the gallery itself, right? That's always the best way. Yeah.
And thank you so much for this opportunity, because it really means a lot that it gets shared with a larger audience.
Well, for sure. I know that I know that motherhood is. I've obviously never been a mother, but I certainly know that it brings its challenges. And it's not always what you envision, but that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of positives.
For sure. Nothing's perfect, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Alice, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Todd.
All right, take care.
Have a great day.
All right, you as well. Alice Jennex, an artist in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Interesting story. Shopping plazas with parking are seeing robust demand for Halifax retail tenants. We'll get into this when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, Canadian retail remains resilient despite tariffs and other challenges. Joining us to discuss this is Matt Houston, Vice President with the Atlantic Listing Team with the CBRE in Halifax, specializing in landlord and vendor advisory. Matt, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so tell us more, give us some more details from this report, if you will, please, that are relevant.
Yeah, so I guess Halifax and Canada, the first half of the year, the report came out that across the country, retail has been fairly resistant despite the economic uncertainties with the tariffs, inflation, interest rates. The retail market has remained strong because vacancy rates continue to be low and demand continues to be high. So we've seen strong activity. We've seen new people enter the market, especially in Halifax, and it's remained relatively positive despite the kind of worrying conditions that we may have thought might have happened with these uncertainties.
All right. So who else is doing well?
Well, across the country, it's been relatively similar for most major markets, and in Halifax, we've seen strong demand. Our vacancy rates have not increased, and finding quality retail sites is really challenging. As I said, the supply remains relatively low for both existing and new product. We're seeing a lot of demand come from food and beverage. Even though food and beverage margins remain low, there's a lot of new franchises and businesses, whether they're national or local, looking to open. We've seen retail plazas with on-site parking experiencing a massive levels of demand, mostly because these traditional plazas are not being built in urban centers anymore, because the highest and best use especially in Halifax is multi-res. So we're not seeing as much of these new developments take place with on-site parking. So anything with on-site parking, if there is any turnover, it gets snapped up pretty quickly.
We were talking like Halifax Shopping Center, that type of thing, Micmac Mall.
Yeah, Halifax Shopping Center, Micmac Mall, there's been strong demand, but especially, Dartmouth Crossing, Bears Lake. Bears Lake in the past 5 years has tightened up significantly. Very limited turnover. Rental rates are increasing. Tenants that have been in those plazas for 10, 15 years that experienced relatively, modest rental rates in comparison to other markets on renewals are seeing increases, and we're seeing some renewals go to arbitration just because these guys aren't used to paying these rents that are creeping up closer to some of the bigger cities in Canada.
Yeah, so kind of a lot of the prognostication that a lot of the brick and mortar would not survive, that has not come to pass.
That has not come to pass. No, I think mostly because 2023 to 2024 was one of a record year in population growth. Obviously, this year we're going to see that decrease, but I think we're still trying to keep up from the amount of people that have come into Halifax, come into Canada, and there is a demand for retail to service this new population. And we're also in Halifax, what we've seen in particular is some of the changes in the development requirements. In the past, the planning department mandated that 100% of the ground floor needed to be commercial. Now that's changed. Anything built before April 2027, they've reduced those restrictions, and now it's only up to a maximum of 20% of the ground floor is to be commercial, and that's obviously to help the housing situation. But what it means is just less retail is being built, and so especially in urban cores. So we're really only seeing, in many cases scenarios, suburban and rural retail development, except for some of the exceptions where Westwood's building Richmond Yards, which has about 75,000 square feet of commercial, and they built the mills downtown. But because there's limited supply, there's a strong demand for those retail spaces, and they're getting snapped up pretty quickly.
And the new builds, what can you tell us about new builds when it comes to commercial?
The trends and the key drivers remain the same. Location is hugely important. anything that has on-site parking or underground parking is very helpful for commercial uses. Even though parking ratios have lowered to what they used to be in the past, people still need to, depending on what it is, if it's anything grocery related or service related, people need to still drive up to their units and to the building and business and retail spaces that don't provide access or loading are, don't lease as fast. So those main drivers still remain the same. But yeah, we have a very limited supply. So unless we build, purpose-built retail, and we have limited land opportunities, it's going to continue to remain the same.
So I would say, based on the chat we've had, not a bad news story.
Not a bad news story. I think we still have room for commercial developments in the city, with a mix of residential. Obviously, the highlight these days has been on multi-res, but I think we can't forget about the services that go along with that, and retail is a big part of that.
Matt, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Matt Houston, Vice President with the Atlantic Listing Team, located at the CBRE Halifax. This story caught my eye. I thought I'd pass along. The experts are calling climate change-driven heat a public health crisis for workers in Canada and around the world. The World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization say outdoor workers in physically demanding jobs like construction are at especially high risk of heat stroke, dehydration, and kidney dysfunction. They say workers keeping our societies running are paying the highest price. And they say the impacts are especially severe in vulnerable communities with limited access to cooling, health care, and productive labor policies. And it's true, folks. Well, on a daily basis on my drive home, and in sweltering heat, I see the guys and some women, of course, the workers, the construction workers, at locations everywhere around HRM, and they're still going at it, and they still get the job done. And it's amazing what the human body can do when you're used to it, that's for sure. All right, speaking of weather, we'll talk with Allister Aalders and sports in the next half hour. We'll be back. All right, it's always a good sign that the week is almost over for me when I look up and I see Allister Aalders sitting across from me. Allister, listen, I like you, but I like you more because it means the show's almost done.
Half an hour, and
that's right.
Bye-bye. See you later. Yeah, I look forward to this time of the week too, because it's Friday, and like you said, the show's almost done.
That's right. And then of course Cecil Wright is my second favorite guest.
Yes, exactly. It's good way to end on weather and sports on a Friday.
Exactly. We like to keep things light. We talk about a lot of serious stuff, and the weather is obviously very serious.
For sure.
And look, the forest fire situation, it could be worse at this point, considering, right?
I mean, considering, we had some beneficial rain earlier in the week, the amounts were still quite variable, but considering, just how dry it continues to be, we've been very fortunate, I think, that the situation hasn't grown worse. Obviously, a fluid situation down in West Dalhousie where it's been, a very challenging week for crews there. And, hats off to the firefighters and the DNR crews and everyone, the volunteers. It's just incredible to see how everyone bands together, comes together during these times. And it's truly remarkable. But, it's been a tough week for them. But, look at the other fires that popped up, Susie's Lake near Bears Lake, and we had a couple more in the valley that popped up, and they've all been quickly brought under control, which is just fantastic given the circumstances that we have been dealing with weather-wise. So we're very fortunate that the weather has at least not been too hot this week, because that was a big contributor to the wildfire behavior that when it all started breaking out, and obviously some lightning too, which we really don't need, responsible for, if I'm correct on this, the West Dalhousie Long Lake fire and some of the others in the valley. So we've been fortunate that, we still desperately need rain and lots of it, but the weather has been more favorable this week in terms of at least cooler weather. I know it would really be nice if it was a bit more humid, though, and just a bit rainier. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this last week. It's a little tough. We want to enjoy the summer weather while we have it, but we really need that rain.
Yeah. Okay. Any rain on the horizon at all?
So the next best chance for rain looks to be as we go through Monday and into early Tuesday. It's a bit of a complex setup where there's going to be a trough of low pressure well to our north and west, and then there's going to be a second area of low that develops off the east coast of the U.S. feeding into this trough in its weather front. So that's likely going to bring some rain and showers as we go later in the day, Monday through Monday night. The rainfall amounts are still a bit uncertain just because the models aren't quite sure how heavy the rain with the system developing off the eastern seaboard could be. So there's the potential that we do get into some heavier rain as that feeds into the low. So certainly some rain on the horizon. The amounts are still a bit uncertain. I do think it'll at least be beneficial for the province, so that is good news. There is another tropical disturbance behind Erin. The next named storm would be Fernand. It's going to be sitting between the Leeward Islands and Bermuda this weekend. Looks like it might develop into a small tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm, and then feeding into that overall system I just mentioned, but I think it weakens by the time it does so, and it looks more likely that if it does feed into that trough or does develop, it would likely track closer to Newfoundland, so not really having a major influence on the overall weather system in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes on Monday, but certainly watching Monday and Monday night for some beneficial rain, and then some unsettled periods, as we go through the end of the month into early September, but no signs of, say, widespread rain events still on the horizon. So we will take unsettled periods over nothing, that's for sure. But, we really, I think, are going to have to wait for the pattern change that allows more defined systems to develop, which we start to see in the fall because we're getting more of those temperature contrasts where it's, warmer to the south and over the ocean. And then you start to get the cooler air that settles in, through the fall. That really helps to develop those systems. And I think we're going to have to start, wait for those to get really the more widespread beneficial rains. But certainly looks like some unsettled periods as we go through the end of the month into early September. And temperatures really not too hot, right around seasonal for this time of year. So as we've talked about, temperatures are a big factor in all of this as well. So we will take seasonal versus maybe 30 degree. It's
for sure.
Everyone's different on the heat, but it's like after dealing with the hot, humid weather this summer, it's kind of nice to have some comfortable temperatures out there.
And at night, I'm noticing the temperature cools down nicely, right? Which is great for sleeping.
It's great. It was low single digits in parts of the province earlier in the week. So I was saying in the weather earlier in the week, it was a bit fall-like, that's for sure. And up in Edmundston, New Brunswick, they were down to the freezing mark, and they had a frost advisory out earlier in the week. So it's sign of the times. We're heading into the new season very soon.
All right. So Erin is skirting us, I suppose. Is that the right way of putting it? Skirting us? Maybe not. That.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll feel the effects anyway.
Safely offshore. I mean,
there you go. Yeah.
I think what's incredible is that, it's over 600 kilometers to our south, but the cloud cover that, if you're looking outside your window right now and you're seeing the high cloud cover over the province is courtesy of Erin because the storm is just so large in size. It's incredible how, far-reaching these systems can be, but we're really not getting into many of the direct impacts from Erin. The winds are picking up today from the northeast, gusting, upwards of 40, 50 kilometers per hour,
not bad.
Which is manageable for our standards.
That's normal. Yeah.
That's a pretty normal wind, for us. Right along the Atlantic coast, gusts between 50 and 70. So that is a gustier wind, but it's all very manageable and it's not warning criteria. No rain, unfortunately. I know there was a lot of talk we need the rain, but I think if we got the rain, we would have been getting the wind with it too, which we don't want. And then obviously the waves have been the big story, coming to shore between about 3 and 5 meters, building today, tonight, and then subsiding as we go through Saturday, and that threat of rip currents that comes with it. So thankfully we're avoiding most of the impacts. If you have marine interests, There's going to be gale and storm force winds off the coast, and then over the southernmost marine district, hurricane force winds and, waves between 8 and 12 meters. So it's quite stormy over the ocean, but, here in Nova Scotia, it's almost just like another day in the province weather-wise. If we didn't know Aaron was there, we probably wouldn't even realize it, right? So
kicking up some waves and some rip current. Tell us about rip current.
So rip currents, they can happen any time of the year, not just with a hurricane, but, they're strong, narrow, seaward flows of water that extend from the shoreline out past the surf zone. And these are obviously extremely dangerous because you can be swimming in the ocean and then you get pulled out to sea and you're stuck in one of these rip currents, and it can be very challenging to get out. And the problem a lot of people face is that even the strongest swimmers have trouble getting out of them, and a lot of people don't necessarily know how to escape them, so they're swimming and they're getting exhausted trying to get out of the rip currents. So that is why they're so dangerous. And obviously when we have larger waves that are crashing ashore like we have with Aaron today and tonight, and the risk will still be there tomorrow. Really important that you're, staying out of the ocean. And, if you're going to watch the waves, do so from a safe distance, because obviously things can look, impressive, or maybe it doesn't even look too bad, but then things can also change very quickly, and you have, suddenly some large waves start crashing right into the coastline, and you can end up, being caught in that weather. So it's, always very important that if you are planning to be near the coastline this weekend, that you are observing the waves safely. And I would stay out of the water, this weekend. If you're maybe at a supervised beach, get the advice of lifeguards, because they know if there's, what the conditions are going to be like. I do expect that situation will improve, later Saturday and Sunday. But, I've been having some people ask me, can I swim in the ocean on Saturday? And I'm like, I maybe wouldn't chance it. Seek advice from the lifeguards at the beach, and I would just be cautious and stay out, and because you don't want to get caught in a rip current. Obviously, very serious.
Okay, more on hurricanes, because we're in the hurricane season. Goes till when? The end of November, is it, or mid-November?
Technically, goes till the end of November. So we are heading towards the statistical peak, which is around September 10th.
Right.
Obviously. We see that with the number of disturbances that are starting to pop up. And
Dorian seems to me came in October.
Yeah, the statistical peak, as I mentioned, is September. But for Atlantic Canada, we often watch, September and October for these storms and hurricanes to move in, because that's when our waters are the warmest, and these systems can, they often start to weaken as they move in, but they can hold on to their energy as they do track in. So it's really going to be, over the next several weeks that we're keeping a very close eye on any disturbances that develop in the Atlantic, because as we had with Aaron, it's well offshore, but it's a bit close for comfort. If it had tracked just a bit farther west, or maybe a bit farther towards a northerly track, it would have been a very different story today.
All right, what's the eye wall replacement cycle?
Yeah, so that's very interesting, because when I was talking to you this time last Friday, we briefly said Hurricane Aaron was Category 1, and by the next morning it was up to Category 4, and it was later a Category 5 hurricane. So that's a very powerful hurricane, but hurricanes are not able to sustain themselves. They get their energy from the ocean temperatures, the very warm ocean temperatures. The release of heat is what fuels the hurricane. But the hurricane can only last so long on that in that eye wall, that beautiful eye that you see on those impressive satellite images. And what starts to happen is, outside of the eye wall, which is what surrounds the eye, you start to get a stronger band that wants to move in. So it forces the current or existing eye wall to collapse into the eye of the hurricane. And then essentially what that does is it causes alterations in the intensity of the hurricane. So you could go from having a Category 4 hurricane down to a 3 or a 4, because that eye wall has collapsed within the eye. It's no longer as strong as it can be. But when that eye wall gets replaced through this eye wall replacement cycle, we get that eye returning, and it can start to intensify once again. So it's just a recurring cycle where the hurricane can only sustain its eye for so long if conditions are favorable. So it ends up collapsing onto itself, but then the eye wall replacement cycle that forms ahead of that initial eye wall moves in to really get things strengthening again. But what happens with the eye wall replacement cycle is that the hurricane force winds then start to expand outwards, and that's why Hurricane Aaron has grown so large in size, because we were talking about it this time last week. We've been talking about it for a while, so it's had a lot of time to go through these replacement cycles and just grow in size over the last several days.
Okay, and just quickly to wrap things up, the weekend looks good weather-wise, but not a lot of rain in the forecast.
Not a lot of rain. Monday night will be when we're watching for the rain, at least in Halifax area, later Monday through Monday night. But the weekend itself, lots of sunshine, winds gusting upwards of 40 up to 50 by Sunday, and temperatures in the mid-20s. It'll be low 20s right at the coast.
Okay, pal. Appreciate it, Al.
Thank you.
All right, Allister Aalders, our weather specialist. Sports and Cecil when we come back.
Facts.
All right, time to talk sports with Cecil Wright, our sports guru. Cecil, last night I sat down with my bag of chips, with my beverage, and watching the Yankees and the Red Sox and feeling good about the Yankees because they'd won 5 straight, and lo and behold, the stupid Red Sox beat me again. I was not happy.
Well, it's only, 6 out of the last 7 we have beaten you?
I know.
We're just kicking you. If we were playing you guys all year, we'd have everything wrapped up.
Yeah, the Red Sox have the Yankees number. What's going on with that? Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I will say this, though. The Yankees, they still have the potential to scare you with the bat.
Yeah,
they really do.
They have a good lineup. They have a nice lineup. They really do, yep.
But their pitching seems to be letting them down all of a sudden. You get into their bullpen and good things can happen for you.
Yeah, Bellinger, a nice hitter. They've got even Stanton, who you like to pile on, is having a decent year, isn't he? You got to admit it.
Yeah, I'll admit it. But, like I say, what happens in the last month of the season will tell the tale. And I don't know, man. If I were you guys, knowing that you don't have Garrett Cole, knowing that Heel, who throws the ball real hard, is still coming back from injury, I just don't think you have the pitching to sustain it.
Yeah, well, perhaps. So what about the Blue Jays? Look, Vladdy looks like he's got a little bit of a leg problem right now. They're stumbling a bit. What are your thoughts on the Blue? Because you predicted the demise of the Blue Jays for months now, right?
It's still going to happen. Don't worry. There's plenty of time to go. I think Vladdy's injury is a little bit on the mysterious side. I guess they're saying that it's a strained hamstring or something like that.
Hamstring, yeah.
So now here's an opportunity for Bichette to really, stand up and become the team leader that I think a lot of people have thought that he has been meant to be.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I don't know. There's just something about that team that I can't figure it out. When I think they should be doing well, they don't. And when I think they should be, getting killed by teams like the Dodgers, they don't.
Yeah.
They're unpredictable.
Yeah, Springer, he's had a good year for a guy his age, plays every day, plays the outfield. Springer's really shown some real leadership, in my opinion.
Yeah, he has, but he's another guy who's been injured lately, and he's always been injury prone in the first place. And at his age, they really have to take care of him if they expect to have him give them anything in the playoffs if they make it there.
What are your thoughts on the Mets?
Man, the Mets. I thought early in the year, I thought they were going to run away with the National League East.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, their bullpen broke down and they couldn't get anybody out.
Yeah.
And Soto, isn't hitting as well as people expected him to hit. And although they've got that Lindor, I think is just a fabulous all-around player at shortstop. I don't think they could beat Philadelphia, to be honest with you. I think Philly's got a good team, and especially bolstered by the closer that they just got at the trade deadline from Minnesota. And all the money that has been invested in that team, it's got to be disappointing to the ownership.
Yeah, for sure. But the Dodgers, they're going to be the team you got to go through in the National League, obviously, right? Just they're head and shoulders above the rest.
they've got almost all-stars at every position. You know, really. And, you know, I give San Diego a lot of credit. They put up a good fight, and they actually led the Dodgers by a couple games a week or so ago. But then they seem to have, you know, every team, you know, once you think they're as hot as can be, they just, you know, they go down the other side of that mountain and, you know, something bad happens to them. I don't know, man. I got to tell you this, too. I thought the Giants were going to make a move, you know, and then they traded for Rafael Devers, and I don't think they've won a game since.
Yep. Speaking of the Giants, the New York Giants beat your New England Pats 42-10 last night.
Out loud. In preseason football where none of the starters played.
I know, but still, I had to get that out there, right? It's kind of great.
You are so mean. I can't wait till we stomp your Jets.
Oh, come on, the Jets. The Jets, this is our year, Cecil. Don't you know that? The Jets are going to turn it around this year, finally.
Yeah, who's your quarterback this year?
Joe Namath.
Yeah, you wish. Joe Namath. One of the great ones.
Oh, my gosh. The last time the Jets won the Super Bowl was the year I was born, 1969, and I wasn't even born yet. I was born in May, so there you go. So are you excited about football, though, preseason? It's always great, eh? I love football. Love NFL football.
I'm excited now that the preseason games are over, for my team anyway, and now we can really work on putting in the plays that you're going to use and on sharpening up the defense. I don't think that the Patriots defense is too bad, to be quite honest with you. It's a question of how many points can they score and how many turnovers will they not have. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And I have a degree of excitement from my team this year. Nice. Probably more than you and the Jets.
Yes, of course. A degree of excitement. That's a little hesitant, Cecil. I got to say.
Well, you know, we are coming off a 4-win season. You know, so I do have, you know, I'm smart enough to know not to shoot my mouth off too much.
Right.
But I'm hoping for at least 9 wins this year.
All right. What do you got cooking locally before I let you go?
Well, you know, I don't know if you know this, but our Nova Scotia women are over there undefeated at the Canada Games right now, and it looks like they're in the semifinals tomorrow. Wow. So, and this is the first time they've had female baseball in the Canada Games. So if Nova Scotia is able to get a medal in their very first tournament, wouldn't that be special?
Beautiful. Okay, pal. Great as always, Cecil. We'll do it next week. Thanks, bud.
Have a good weekend.
Okay, take care. Cecil Wright, sports guru. And, he's a big Patriots fan, which the 4-win season last year, they can do nothing but improve upon that. The NFL season is close, and it's always great. The fall is great for sports, for sure. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank Vanessa Veinotte on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. Dan Alstrand will be sitting in for me next week. So be kind to Dan. We're back on Monday, 10 o'clock. See you then.